So let's start to structure or create a structure. So what I have here are my trimmed toothpicks. I'm going to zoom out just a smidge here so that I'm not all hand in the video. So again, always trying to take and do a skinny end to a short end, or a wide end to a skinny end, to increase the stability of my structure. So I think I'm going to start with this end. And I'm going to start with a triangle. You can start with any sort of shape that you would like. So you could start with a rectangle, you could start with a square, an octagon, any sort of shape that you want. And so this is where some students, if we were in the regular classroom, may be switching to, maybe switching to a hot glue. Wood glue or Elmer's glue is going to give you the cleanest set of lines though. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little glue on the bottom of each one of these. And this is the part where, you know, there's a bit more waiting around that can happen as we're waiting for that glue to dry. And I am going to put my structure like this. So now I have a perfect triangle because I did trim each one of those. Remember, I stacked them up and I trimmed them. So now I'm going to wait for this structure to cure so that it's stable. And then I will come back in and I will add it to another triangle so that I can create a pyramid structure. So I will come back and finish that video here in a moment. So we're going to start to talk about construction techniques here and how you can actually start to put your mainframe or your armature together. This is what is called an additive structure. So we are starting with a base structure and we are adding on to that structure. If you have access to a hot glue gun, that is something you can definitely use at this point in time. Again, the more sparingly you use the hot glue gun, the better, because the glue tends to be less sightly, but again, it does tend to dry quicker, so that's why it can be a benefit. So if you are using the Elmer's glue, absolutely not a problem. It just takes a little bit of time to dry. I pre-made some of these structures. I have the triangles I made from the previous section. These are now dry, these are dry. And we can start to kind of put them together into our armature or our mainframe. So I'm going to move these off to the side. If like one of your structures is slightly sticking as you were constructing it, be very careful as you pull it off. Obviously this is just Elmer's glue and toothpicks and it can snap or break. So I'm going to set those things off to the side, and I think we'll start with our square piece here. You're gonna need a little glue. I think there's something wrong with my glue bottle because I cannot get glue to come out. I stole this from my daughter's school supplies, so it's a very real possibility that there is something shoved down in there. And when in doubt, just open it up. There we go. And that is the glory of having a bunch of extra toothpicks around, right? I'm just gonna grab some of that glue out of the inside of the container. There, problem solved, people. Solving problems, saving lives. Not really saving lives. Okay, so I want to connect these two together. Now I have a couple of options here. I could make a square, so I could have, you know, two toothpick lines that are the same length. Or I could have a rectangle. So I could use some of the longer lines that I had created. I think we're going to go ahead and do a square though. So I'm going to grab my lines. And again, always making sure that we are trimming our lines. We're going to need 4 of them because we want them to be the same length. So again, tapping against the table, grabbing our scissors, and then trimming these. Of course, it is best to do that over a garbage can. I do not have a garbage can in front of me. So now I've got 4 lines that are the same length. So I'm going to grab a little bit of glue. And this is the part that will be a bit on the time-consuming side. So I'm going to need to hold that in place until this is, let's try doing it this way. If I place it on the table, that'll be a little bit easier on my hands to do it this way. So I'm going to place it that way. And then while I'm at it, let's do a 2-for here, and I'm going to put a little glue on this end. And I managed to roll that. There we go. Nope, I'm trying to do too much at once. You may find that if you blow on it, it may get the glue to dry. So this is where that using a minimal amount of glue is probably a better situation here. A lot of glue is going to take a long period to dry. I think the toothpicks you guys have mine have a slight bend to them. They're almost curved slightly. I know the toothpicks you guys have are much straighter than the ones I have. So since the Elmer's glue, the white glue, dries slower, you are probably going to need to construct some sort of support in order to put your pieces together. So I just grabbed this little container that was sitting on my desk to help prop up my structure. And so you can see it took some time. I had to put the bottom one on first, and I let that dry a little bit, being supported by the structure. Then I was able to add this top piece after about 5 or so minutes, and then another 5 or so minutes after that I was able to add this one, and then I just kind of let it sit. I didn't touch it, I didn't move it. I kept it just very still, being supported by this structure, by this, it's actually a container of toothpicks. Now this is quite solid, so I can add the last set here. So when I do this, that one's not very straight. I'm going to go with the straight one here. I can add that, and I'm going to show you guys a second way of constructing this. Now, depending on which shape you decide to go with, you may find that your structure may not need any additional support. So let me show you what I mean by that. So I've got those 2 triangle pieces that I had created before, and those will actually kind of stand on their own depending on how far apart you are sliding them from one another. Oh, makes a pretty little Star David. You may find that you want to go ahead and use that support. Let's see if I grab that. Just grab this other box. Again, using what you guys have at your disposal to help create that support structure until you are pleased with the way that this looks. And then you can start to glue your pieces together. So that is, it all depends on the structure, how wide or how shallow you are making it. Once you get the base structure done, then it kind of starts to go a little bit faster. Because you are working at home right now, one of the things you may want to consider is space. Obviously, you are going to need to find a place to store this item that is going to be safe, especially from small animals and small children, because it is still very delicate and breakable. So if you are working in a confined space, It is fine to do smaller structures. You can add small structures on small structures on small structures. That is something that is completely fine. So consider your space constraints, especially this year, and how you would like to do it. Now, another way you can do this, so I've got 4 squares right here. You will still probably need a little bit of support, but you can kind of double up on your edges. So we could glue them together like so. Again, you will probably need something to help support them until that glue dries. But, you know, in gluing these 2 toothpicks together at an angle, you know, you'll have a pretty good solid, hopefully, connection between those. And then this will be able to stand on its own because it'll be that, you know, half a triangle here. Okay, so that's one way to do that, and I'll do that in a moment. I did want to briefly talk about support. So this is the cube that I had started before. One of the things that you're going to want to take and do is to support these corners because they still are fairly weak. So grab a little bit of glue, and you're going to do this at all of your corners. And again, this is something that's going to take a little bit of time, and we're going to add a little extra support on those corners. So this is a good thing to do to make sure that you have a strong structure. And again, we don't need massive amounts of glue here. And if you are working with hot glue, again, this is something you should still do. And you can actually even trim these so that they are smaller. Place this so that it looks similar to the other one. So if you wanted, you know, when you wanted your corner supports to be smaller, I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to just take my scissors, and I can. Oh, where did that go? I lost it. Okay, we'll just use this small piece here. Oh, it's right there. I just want to use it because it had the thicker, that was the thicker end. So again, just a little bit of glue on both of those. And again, you can do a smaller support in the corner if you don't want to do something that's as big as a full toothpick. This actually does tend to look a little bit nicer and neater and allows you for more of that line design. Okay, so we're going to set that off to dry, and I will start to put this together. So I'm going to grab my 2 supports, and then I'm going to get a little glue here. You know, if you wanted and you had an extra toothpick, you could use that toothpick to kind of paint. So there we go. And I actually didn't quite need those supports, but we'll put them there anyways, just in case. So I'm going to let that dry, and then that will be part of my structure. I could even see if I could get this one to stick together. That's working pretty good. And then once these 2 parts are dry, I can glue along that edge and then we can make our cube.